and like you bite in, like we talked about having like the bigger beers a little bit warmer, but they're still going to be way colder than the stew. And when you take this big old bite of the meat and it makes you go, because it's like too hot, you can like cool it down.
I'm laughing so hard because I'm like, I know exactly what you mean.
And you're cooling it down. So you cool it down with the beer. But my favorite way when I do like food, drink, any pairing is usually like I chomp up the food. And then before I swallow is when I like take the drink of whatever the flavor is. And it kind of helps like swish it down. So if you're getting it all through and then you get to swish it down finally with that cold beer.
But I feel like you totally crushed like the sound element of this presentation. So I don't even.
Greetings, fellow beer enthusiasts. It's a beautiful day, the Body by Beer podcast. And we are here to have some lovely craft beer connoisseur conversations. Yes, I nailed it.
Crushed it.
I'm Chelsea Rhoads, and today's episode is brought to you by Mustard Later. Mustard Later is the craft beer community's marketing, consulting, and influencing hub. When you don't have time to catch up now, you know what you do?
Mustard later.
You mustard later.
Such a good joke. Hey there, everybody. I'm Liz Hess. Thank you for joining us today. And today we're going to be exploring winter ales. 'Tis the season. We are so excited. Winter ales and a bit of history behind them and why they're so darn important to us during the darkest days of the year.
Darkest days, That's right, Liz. Winter ales bring joy during the holidays on these cold, short days that we're in right now. We have, a couple more weeks, and then it's finally back to the days getting longer. But this 4:30 sundowns are rough.
I agree.
Rough.
I agree. Before we get into our main segment today, we're going to start a little bit differently, and we're going to introduce some Beer 101 that we'll call the Ale Academy.
The Ale Academy.
At least for now, that could change. And this is for the perspective that there are no dumb questions. Absolutely not. And if you're new to the craft beer scene, we hope that these questions and answers will help you approach your new love for craft in a fun and non-intimidating way.
Yeah, there's, when you have a space that's as niche as this, and there's a lot of really passionate people, it can be a little intimidating getting into. And that's kind of one of the barriers we want to break down of let's get more people involved in this space and more people loving it. And it's not necessarily meant to be intimidating, but it can be. So let's get some 101 out there and get some more people comfortable coming in through the doors that maybe we're intimidated.
That's right. So we're going to start with the biggest basic.
Yeah.
How about
jumping on my line there?
I did.
Yeah.
I'm
get
sorry.
out of here.
Go ahead.
We're going to get back to the basics, talking about the fundamentals of the ingredients in beer and how amazing it is of the amount of variety and flavors and options you can create with basically 4 ingredients. We throw in a few extras here and there, but right now it's a lot of 4 ingredients.
Right. So we'll start with number 1. It's the tried and true, the foundation, and that's going to be water.
Yeah.
It forms the base of literally every single beer.
Yeah. There's malted barley or sometimes other grains like wheat. This is where a beer gets its sweetness, body, and all the important fermentables to start making some alcohol.
That's right. And then hops. Hops are next. They add that bitterness, balance out the malt sweetness, and also contribute to the aroma and flavor of the beer. So, and taste. And taste. However you go about that. Sometimes I taste, then I smell. Most of the times I smell, then I taste.
I like to try to do it together. I do like start with the smell, and then I let it go, and then I do a taste, and I'm like, ooh, okay. And then I do like another taste, but smell as I'm swishing and drinking.
Fair.
Yeah, I like to that's usually my 3-step process for my
That's
brand
really
new beer. Yeah.
That was ad-libbed, and that was really good.
It was more because then I can understand the differences of how the flavor or smell change based on how I'm drinking it. So if all of a sudden I'm like, oh, that tastes off, or I don't like this beer, I'm like, yeah, but I try it in a different way.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like it.
Or then I can also be like, I did eat a crap ton of onions for lunch, so maybe that's why it tastes bad. Let's try a different
Or
technique.
garlic.
Yeah, garlic. And the final ingredient that's very important is going to be yeast. This is what ferments the sugars, producing the alcohol and the carbonation. So very, very important. It also adds flavors, depending on the type of yeast strains that you're doing. And there's a lot of yeast strains that can be used over and over.
Mm-hmm.
If you have sour beers, that's going to be because of the yeast strains as well. So lots of variables within that, but we're not going to touch on that currently. But there's some yeast is probably like the coolest part of beer, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah. But we'll stick with the basics, right?
Yeah.
It's what gets you there. But it can take you many, many places. So speaking of variety and flavor, we can chat about different styles of beer. We've got lagers, we've got ales, we've got stouts, porters, IPAs, etc. We'll stop there, right? You can go on and on and on. But each of these has its own unique taste and, of course, history.
Yep. Lagers are going to be, we're going to kind of like start at the top. Usually if you go into a brewery, you're going to see a menu and they're going to go lightest down. When you drink, you're going to also want to do lightest down. So we're going to start with lagers, which are typically lighter in flavor, lighter in color, often a lot of carbonation, but they're crisp and clean, and they're super refreshing.
Absolutely. And then you have your ales, which can range from that lighter color, but they start to get a little bit darker and fruity and robust maybe. And the diversity in an ale is absolutely incredible. It can take you many places. You're only limited by your imagination.
Oh, that's lovely.
Thanks, Willy Wonka.
Should make like a child's book on beer. That'd be fun.
Ooh, probably not. I was like, great idea. No, it's a terrible idea. Okay.
Not the worst idea. Porters and stouts, that's where we're going to get into like your rich, dark beers. They're going to have big flavors, often roasty. Coffee is incorporated in. You can also kind of intertwine into like the sweeter as well.
Mm-hmm. And we can't leave out IPAs, right? Famous for their strong hop character, and they range from bitter to aromatic and fruity. Again. Really, that's for our hop heads out there, right? If you like bitter, go for an IPA.
IPAs are the way to go.
Yeah.
To just briefly touch on to get you a little bit more on this 101 lesson, we're going to talk about temperatures, mainly because we did talk about stouts and porters.
Obviously, the temperature can change the whole beer experience. For your lighter beers, like your lagers, they're best served to be cold, around 35 to 40 degrees. Even like 40 degrees is pushing it. You don't want to go much more beyond that. It's going to bring out their crispness.
Yeah, I agree. For ale, stouts, and porters, a little bit warmer, and like the 45 to 50 is a little bit more ideal. It allows for the complex flavors to come out. Really challenge you if you do go out and you do get something darker, like we're doing right now, is we're doing a porter. The difference, and like make a note, like take a drink right when you get it, wait 5 minutes, take a drink, wait 5 more minutes, or just wait 10 minutes total. The flavors are going to totally change. This happens really in any beer. It just kind of depends on which beers do you want those flavor changes in, or which beers do you want to get drank really a lot more quick. Like lagers, you tend to want to drink quicker because you want them at that colder temperature. Yeah. Whereas stouts, like you get a lot more of that robust. And honestly, a lot of stouts they bring home, I almost keep at like room temperature anyways, and just serve it from that because that's when the most of their flavors come out.
Also, if you're struggling with patience, try pouring yourself a glass of 2 of the same kind. So if you really like to drink fast and you want to experience that cold crispness, cool. And then while you're doing that, the other one's warming up. Now you're really going to experience that other flavor profile.
Fair. Yeah.
But that's only if you're a bit of a lush.
I mean, you could also just wait. But who wants to do that?
No.
Keep one off to the side.
Patience is a virtue.
You can do a couple. What does it taste like after 30 minutes? Really, it's just the point of have fun with it, right? Like experiment and have fun. And that's the goal of getting into the scene is, we've all started as the newbies and we've all kind of gone through the trial and errors, but they're fun. That's the exciting part is trying different things and seeing how they change.
And ask questions, right? Talk about it and ask questions. Most people, if you're willing to talk about beer. They're going to talk about it with you as well.
Yeah,
they like talking about beer.
People like talking about beer that are in the beer space.
Craft beer people like talking about beer.
True.
Here we are.
So today we're drinking peanut butter graham cracker porter from Denver Beer Co. I'm going to segue into some of our brew news. It's good. You gotta be into peanut butter. The graham cracker porter has won oodles of awards. I kind of wish I actually would have looked that up beforehand, but they've won a ton of awards. So it's a great base beer. Peanut butter, if you're into peanut butter, is very peanut buttery, and it's fantastic. So yeah, I would jump into Brew News because it's our first story. Is brought to us by Denver Beer Co. They expanded
Technically, they didn't sponsor, but they could.
They could. This could be you sponsoring it, Denver Beer Co. They opened up their 4th location in Littleton. Yeah, super cool. They expanded. It's one of the additional breweries we've been talking about over the last couple of weeks, that we kind of have this interesting sector where we have breweries closing, but yet we have these breweries that are doing things really well, that are kind of just scooping up those locations and continuing growing. So they're all about their atmosphere, making good local beers, a good vibrant atmosphere, and they're bringing that to the Littleton area. So hopefully Littleton's pumped to have them.
I heard it went really well, at least according to the social media world, and I don't see how it couldn't. Right, they're doing a lot of really good things really well. Yeah. So I think that's just proven by it's their 4th tap room, right? And good for them, and congratulations to them. And we look forward to their continued success. And I really do think it's going to make a lot of people really happy in that area, right? You've got some really good beers and a lot of great people that run the company. So fun.
There's kind of like a double interesting with it is you're seeing breweries close, and you're seeing honestly some of like we're calling them bigger because they're still in like the small level, but bigger of the small breweries kind of scooping them up and growing, which kind of shows a couple of things. It really validates what we talked about. You really have to be doing a lot of things well. It doesn't necessarily mean like it doesn't necessarily mean that the community doesn't want beer around or they're tapped out on drinking beer. It just maybe means like the ones that are there weren't like fulfilling the needs of the community itself. So
like they know what they like.
Yeah, it's just like
people know what they like.
Some breweries are doing it better than others. And I think because there's a lot of variety out in the world, especially in the Colorado area, people get to pick and choose a little bit more. And so having something that they like, they're gonna go to it. And the other piece that is interesting in there that we talked about with a market that is a little bit saturated, if you have multiple locations, does that help your margins? Like if you have one location, you need 30% margins. If you have 3, do you only need 10? I don't totally know. I don't know where that all pans out. Would love to have some extra information from people that have opened numerous breweries. I know I've heard before, like the second location is always the hardest. And once you get past that, it's kind of like smooth sailing. Wow. So I wonder, obviously not purely smooth sailing, there's always going to be your issues, but like it's usually smoother. You're like set up a little bit different. It's kind of like housing's similar too. So it's hard to get into that second property. Once you get past that, you're usually pretty good to go to keep growing. But interesting piece. I would love to hear more of how that changes the dynamic and business model of why people are closing, but yet these other companies that have multiple locations are very confident going in that they can keep growing.
Yeah.
But what are they seeing in the market? What are they seeing in the community that they feel confident enough to hoorah right in? Hoorah.
I'm going to go back to, and you didn't ask for my opinion, but it got me thinking. I'm going to go back to they're doing something well, right? Yep. And the people have spoken. If the people have spoken, well, why not expand to them? Why? Don't make it harder for them to get it. Sure, maybe you're in their local liquor stores, but if they can come in and get a fresh peanut butter graham cracker porter on tap, why wouldn't they?
I didn't think about that. What if like part of the decision making is based on their distribution? And they're like, Littleton's actually one of our top selling areas, so let's open a brewery down there.
Actually, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, I'm sure it's at least part of the equation.
I would hope so. Yeah.
But maybe not totally.
Saturday, December 16th, is the anniversary of
the Boston Tea Party.
The Boston Tea Party. And it is also the 250th anniversary of Sam Adams.
Which is insane. It's so
Talk
old.
about longevity.
It's so wild.
And perseverance. So in honor of both of their anniversaries, Sam Adams is releasing a green tea pale ale.
Which I love. It's really funny.
Oh, yeah.
It's a good choice.
It's a unique combination, green tea and the traditional elements of a pale ale. And then, of course, its release is a part of the brewery's celebration of the historic event of the Boston Tea Party, which is, of course, a significant milestone in American history. And we love touching on our historical facts.
Facts.
Chelsea's favorite.
Yeah, it's just fun how they all intertwine together.
Yeah, it's
That's
like
my favorite part.
it's like this is how we got here.
It's like creating the story of how did beer shape the world.
And we'll kind of get into that later, right? Like the beer, it's not just about the beer, it's a symbol.
That's a symbol, yeah. Exactly.
It's a symbol of something. And it depends on what you're talking about, what the symbol means. But anyway, we thought this was a creative way to celebrate a key historical event. You're infusing green tea and the ale by Sam Adams.
Together. You know what it makes me actually want, and maybe they do this, we live nowhere near that. I want to see, like, on that release party, them having, like, actors and actresses recreating the emotions of the tea party.
Oh, I don't know if I want the full emotions.
Well,
I feel like I don't want that kind of PTSD.
It'd be fun. I think that would be, like, a fun way, and like, how can you do that locally? Obviously, like, in Colorado, you don't have the luxury of the history of Boston at your disposal, but there is some history, and it doesn't necessarily have to be local history for you to contribute with it. But what are some fun ways as a brewery you can do stuff like that? I don't know. Like, I hated history in school because it just wasn't presented interesting. But
now you love history because it's tied with the symbol of a beverage.
Of a beer. Yeah, it's like it'd be fun to go to a brewery and maybe not even know what's going on, and all of a sudden actors show up and they start teaching me about the tea party. I'd be like, oh, yes, please. I would have so much fun with that. What a fun experience. And I think you can do that anywhere. You just got to pick a topic, and it doesn't have to necessarily be actors and actresses. You could have stations, boards up around the brewery. You could have little QR codes that people could interact with. Then if they get through all of them, they get a prize, and it's like a taster. I don't know. That'd be some fun ways to get people up and moving through the brewery and learning stuff. And I feel like everyone would be talking about it. It'd be a fun day and a fun atmosphere throughout the brewery.
So I think what you're saying is that if maybe it's a little extreme, but maybe you take like Meow Wolf and Samuel Adams and you make an immersive craft beer experience.
I think that was called Lagunitas.
Oh, yeah. Oh my gosh, my favorite brewery tour we have ever been on.
That was incredible.
Was
so
Lagunitas in Chicago.
So
and
much fun.
you walk through the doors and all you can hear is Mr. Gene Wilder singing Imagination. You're walking into the chocolate factory.
Long-ass tunnel.
And there are
literally
hundreds of 700 barrel.
They're huge. I don't remember. I'd have to rewatch her video to remember.
I literally found myself listening to that song like 2 days ago and imagining walking through that. Okay, so yes, that I would love to see that on a more regular basis. Yeah. It's just using imagination.
What if the whole brew was called like historical brewing, and that was like every month they had like a different theme of history that they tapped through?
Yeah,
that'd be fun.
Yeah,
I would go there to like learn new stuff.
Another interesting article came out from vinepair.com, and it's basically titled "China Isn't the Answer for U.S. Craft Beer Woes, but it could be." Okay. And so basically what they get into is how Chinese breweries are looking to the U.S. for inspiration. Why? Because they discovered that their beer drinkers in China really love IPAs, is what the article boils down to. And again, links will be in the comments. If not, let us know. But they should be there. Yeah. So it's the IPA is this influence that is growing very much so in China from the American brewing styles, and the Chinese are trying to incorporate those techniques for them.
Okay.
And that is basically because it's been dominated by like more of your light, bright beers, right? Like your lagers and what have you.
I say from like the limited knowledge I have of the brewing scene, in I think most of the Asias in general, like it seems to be pretty dominated by like the big players, not as much the craft space. And so, I mean, similarly to think of like the big lager brewers here, if they never were forced to innovate because you had the push of the craft beer industry, you probably wouldn't have a whole lot of diversity. You'd have a lot of just kind of the same type of beer.
Right. So there is a group that was at GABF in Denver this year that was going around and trying to, if breweries wanted to, for sure, figure out ways to ship their specifically West Coast IPAs over to China, because Chinese beer drinkers are like emphatic about this, and they are willing to pay like premium prices for these types of beers. But there is a worry about shipping, right? And I mean, is the beer going to go bad? You know, because it's not going to store for that long. I mean, you're on a limited time span, so you're talking about shipping over in giant containers. Yeah. So again, this would be fun to talk with I don't know, a spreadsheet nerd out there who's excited about, right? You know what I'm talking about, like margins.
Yeah, like
excuse me.
It's. I mean, you'd probably have to send anything hoppy over fresh, right? Like right when it gets brewed, get it shipped out right away.
Yeah, but how long does it sit on a ship? You're talking, I think, like a month minimum.
How quick you get stuff over? Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
it'd be an interesting. Most likely, what's going to happen is whatever nearest by areas that can brew more of like the craft type of styles is probably who's going to end up shipping directly into China to help supply this demand. So you probably might actually see some pretty freaking awesome IPA focused breweries right outside of China, or whatever the closest country is. I don't know what that would be. Kicking some major IPA ass and shipping them over. That'd be the way to do it, right? Like that's the only way to keep that really sustainable and cost effective.
Sure. I'm sure some are, right? Like I'm sure maybe we will see some of maybe bigger name breweries going over there and opening up.
We had what was their face?
Outer Range.
Outer Range went to Chamonix,
France.
In France, and opened up their second location.
And we were at Stone Brewing over in Berlin.
Yeah, I didn't know that was there. That was a fun stumble. We had no clue. We're just walking down the streets trying to find where the Berlin Wall used to be.
It's not the one that's full of graffiti. So stupid.
Any wall, we'd be like, get the pose, this is it.
That's just...
So it was also me finding a coat, too. We were trying to buy a thrift store because I didn't bring a coat, which was an unfortunate choice for me. We ended up walking by and we were like, holy shit, there's Stone Brewery in Berlin? I had no idea. That was fun. So my guess is we'll see some navigation there, but I bet right outside of China that there's going to be like a hot spot for some really dope breweries.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see where this. It's a beginning article, right? It's probably like beginning to mid-level article talking about this influence, right? We're probably late to the game in that information, but I am excited to see where it goes, and also like what a great opportunity for whoever's doing IPAs really well to like jump on the Chinese market. And I think that's the point of the title, right? Like it's not its savior, but it could be part of like bringing that additional revenue in, which is really cool.
Yeah, especially all the new shipping companies. Yeah, be cool. Interesting piece. We'll be excited to see what pans out in that market. That wraps up our brew news. That's a good brew news. Lots of good stuff. We're gonna jingle jangle into our Q&A. Jingle jangle into our optimistic inquiries. Okay, it's Q&A. So the so-called dead months are upon us, which kind of span from like beginning of November till like the end of February-ish. And these dead months are kind of just service industry businesses where they're a little bit slower. So it's going to be casinos, which we've been in and experienced, restaurants, which we've been in and experienced, and obviously the craft beer space, which we're in and experienced. So one of the questions came up on the social media channels. I feel it comes up every single year, and people ask about like, well, how do you stay busy?
It's a great question.
We're already doing bingo and we're doing trivia and we've got mug club events and like really just trying to figure out ways live music to stay busy. And also those like can cost money, which is hard to like pump money into a time when it's a little bit deader. A good chance for you to maybe like check out your books and know you just have to invest a little bit more money in those time of years. Like get the busy months, save some of that to pump in some extra marketing and whatnot during the slower months. Yeah. But outside of that, the bigger piece that I wanted to focus on is why.
Why are they slower?
Why do they have no budget? I'm just kidding.
What are the dead times?
Yeah. Why are they deader? Why are they slower? So then we can start more proactively thinking about ways to solve why it's slower.
Sure. Always start with the why.
So initially we're in vacation season, right? You have November, people have time off. You have December, people have time off. Kids are out of school. We have extra vacation days.
Yeah.
People are trying to hit their vacation days at the end of the year so they can use them. Multiple factors going in, but people are gone.
Yep.
Like plain and simple, people are out of town. Another reason that these are kind of the slower seasons are people are broke because of the holidays. Spend a lot of money. You got gifts, you got travel, you have all these things. Sure. So they're kind of on a budget. If you're up in the north or at least middle to north, it's cold AF out there. Nobody wants to be outside.
I do.
It's chilly, she does, but it's chilly. You don't want to go outside. Maybe there's not even space for you. There's a bunch of different variables. And you're hitting fitness season. Everyone's got their New Year's goals and they're trying to get in shape. And nobody thinks of beer and getting in shape in the same. If I drink this beer, it'll help me get into a better shape that's not just round.
You're like, how many fitness workouts do I have to go to wear off this one winter ale?
This one winter ale of deliciousness.
Well, if I have one winter ale a day for the next 5 days, times 2, that's 10.
You gonna drink it?
Well,
so
cheers.
Yeah. So we're gonna get into some ideas around some of those deeper whys. Let's focus on those. I'm sure hopefully some people come up with some ideas. Shoot them in the comments. Help everyone out. Everyone's always asking these questions.
We have these whys. So what are some creative ideas that we can now take these whys and now apply it? Yeah, and apply them. So if we go back to vacations, you can focus on kind of a mixture of gear and promotions. So give people gear that fit holidays, right? Where do most people travel? I don't know. A lot of people go to like lingerie and oven mittens and reindeer antlers. I'm sorry, those not the supplies. Your gear you were talking about. That wasn't what I was gearing toward. Oh. Go ahead. I was thinking like people travel to warm places. Okay, so give them some like warmer weather. So lingerie is still applicable. That could work. Yeah, not completely out of the question. Sunglasses. Sunglasses are cool. Sure. Maybe big round hats. Some like tropical Hawaiian shirts. You could also sell stuff to go so people can take it with you. And what would motivate them to do that is you run a promo of maybe you're trying to hit every state. And so the first person to tag you in a post in a new state with the photo if over this allotted period of time, you hit all of the 50 states and everyone that was the first to post you from that state can be part of your mug club that next year. I don't know. Like come up with something silly, come up with something fun. Like maybe it's whoever tags you the most in your own gear. If it's ski season and people are going skiing, which happens around here a lot, like have some warm gear, have some beanies, stuff that when people take photos versus just hoodies while they're out and about on the mountain, you're actually going to see it. Maybe goggles. Try to hit where people are going to want to get that. And then you're kind of getting that cross promotion that isn't a ton of extra effort, right? You can't always take a 6-pack with you everywhere. Yeah. I think if you understand that why, and you're talking about the customer experience, you're gonna know your audience. So if your audience is big skiers, then you're gonna want to appeal to that. If they're not big skiers and maybe they're just all about lounging around, maybe they're gamers, right? Well, get them some flannel pants for the winter time or something. You know, like PJ pants. I'm inspired by the neighbor at this point in time. But like if they're a gamer, read the room. If they're a gamer and they record themselves, you'd want something like upper body up, so you're getting that promo of like your shirt. Maybe you put extra pads, like elbow padded. Made me feel really jackets. Silly. Like, why are we filming their pants?
You wouldn't be.
I don't know.
I mean, you might.
Or a hat.
Yeah, like right. Different ways that you're going to get that cross promo and come up with different ways that fit your market of people that maybe are going to be excited to help like cross and like make it a promo with them.
Yeah.
End of the story. Hit them where they're going, make it a fun promo, and get people excited. And another key point in this is do it every single year. Make it consistent, because if you're doing it 1 year at a time, people just don't remember it. It's hard for them to like jump on board. A lot of times people are scared or embarrassed to be the first doing stuff.
Yeah.
So do it over and over. Let it build. Like, who cares at the end of the year if like you end up giving out a couple extra Bug Club memberships to honestly probably people that are going to buy it anyways. All you're doing is making your best customers happier and letting them be more excited about you. So who cares? Let your excited people be more excited about you. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. If it's about community and celebration, then celebrate your community.
Yeah, make it happen.
I think those are great points. It's a fun way to keep the community engaged while not necessarily being at the brewery. So talk to me. What if I'm broke? What if I don't got any coins in my pockets? And I would like a beer.
And I want a beer, but I don't want a sweatshirt.
I mean, maybe I've got like what can I do? Maybe I've got some coins, but not a lot of coins.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing to think of is the being broke is truly a big part of it. Everyone's back on their budget, they blew their budget over the holidays, they blew their budget traveling, and now they got to resettle back in. So run events that don't cost a lot of money or help bring people together. Food drives, clothing drives, it's easier. Toy drives. You just got your kids a bunch of toys. Like, get rid of some toys. You don't need all them toys.
Or what if you overstocked your pantry during the pandemic and it's filled with non-perishable food items?
Food drives.
Exactly.
Yeah, bring those in, give people a discount, right? I would highly recommend doing, for sure, a to-go discount, right? Like, most likely people are going to like want to have a beer, but I would honestly focus the discount more on the to-go.
Like a grab and go.
Yeah, because if people are like, hey, I'm just swinging in to drop off this food, you're like, hey, you dropped off some food, you can get $3 off a 6-pack. I think you're going to hit more people that way. And then with people having a beer, you can also offer a promo on that, like $1 off your first beer if you want to. But I feel like whenever I've seen the type of drives like that, people are just coming in, dropping off. And your goal is for them not to just leave. And it's like, oh, sure. You have your food drive pantry drop-off section. Maybe put it by your to-go refrigerator. So people are like, oh, shit, I just dropped something off. I can get $3 off. Okay, I guess I'll grab one. They obviously like beer. They obviously like you. Otherwise, they never would have known you were running it and hosting it anyways.
Exactly.
So get them in. Make it easy for them. You can't make it hard. Like, don't put it by the door so it's really easy for them to drop it and run. And instead, put it by where you want them to buy stuff. And it's just a way to like help people save a little bit of money, but also helping you yourself out as well.
I know my pockets appreciate that. And I know that there's some leftover sardine cans in the pantry that I'd be happy to drop off. But no, I actually think that's a really great idea to put it like a food drive or whatever it might be next to a to-go station. I appreciate that. And it's very community focused.
For sure.
So, okay. So we've covered being a part of the community when I'm away from the brewery. We've talked about maybe not a lot of jangle in my pockets. Like my money jangles, it doesn't fold. What about cold weather?
Cold weather. I wanted to touch on a couple more things for the jingle jangle pockets there.
Sorry. My bad. Skipping ahead.
Yeah, no, you're okay. Potlucks.
That's
host
good.
a potluck. You might be able to get a couple people you get to like host it more consistently so people don't have to risk showing up and there not being any food. But this also can help offset maybe those Monday, Tuesdays when, for whatever reason, food trucks tend to break down more often on Monday, Tuesdays than any other time of the week. Or host like a popcorn and movie night, right? Like little snacks. Doesn't have to be anything huge. Stuff that you can, as a brewery, purchase and like brings people in. If you don't want a bunch of kids, then maybe make it like a rated R movie. Something that you're not going to get a bunch of kids or families that are like, cool, movie night, let's bring my kids in. Because it's just going to happen, right? Like parents also need to get out of the house and they're also like cabin fever with kids. So to kind of avoid that, maybe make it more like, what's the Winnie the Pooh horror movie?
I actually don't know. I was thinking of Violent Night and Bad Santa.
There you go. Good examples. Bad Moms. Love Bad Moms. Great movies.
Bad Moms. Yeah.
Anyways, host something that's maybe more adult themed to help if you don't want the kids. If you want the kids there, then cool. Then host it a little bit earlier. You're still going to get food and everything going on. Yeah, feel free to do it that way. Cold weather. You brought up cold weather. Yep. There's breweries that do promos for whatever temperature it is. Mind you, this doesn't always work if you're in warmer climates. That whatever the temperature is, they sell the beer for that price. So if it's 32 degrees, you get $3.20 beers. These guys actually did one of my favorite promos that I've ever seen a brewery do, and it is so Colorado. I love it so much. And I don't even know if they still do it, but they actually had a thermostat on the walls so you could see what it was. And when you ordered the beer, that's how much your beer was charged for. And I think it was on like the $3.20, not like a 32-cent beer. But the catch was, because their Denver locations, like actually the tap room's pretty small, the majority of their seating's out on the patio, is you had to sit on the patio to get this discount. So you'd have all these people coming up in their like mountaineering ski gear all bundled to get some really cost-effective beers. Yeah. And it's a fun promo. It gives great marketing outreach. You get fun like photos from people out there sitting, and it's unique. It's an experience.
I like that.
I always thought that was so much fun. I hate the cold, so I never did it, but I thought it was fun.
Yeah, it's a great way to embrace the season and the dead times with, well, I mean, if you can afford the discount, why not?
Yeah.
Gets people through the door.
Yeah,
I love that.
Have some fun. And that was clear in Denver. Like, imagine being more on the outskirts where the mountains actually are and people are getting done skiing and like already have their gear. It's super easy promo to rock out. And a lot of breweries are losing 50+% of their seating once the patio's closed. So how do you get people in? Make sure your crew is actually shoveling. That helps. Oh, yeah. Can't just set them out in a pile of snow. You got to actually clean that shit up, you know?
Yeah. If you're like, well, it's going to melt the next day. I don't often find that's the right approach. I mean, just clean it off. Otherwise, it's going to turn to ice.
Yeah, just clean it off.
That's no fun. So you got to be proactive. All right. So
last Y is fitness. Fitness pizza in my mouth.
I thought we were talking about beer.
We just talked about beer and pizza pairing together. Anyways, okay, fine. Joke didn't land. Fitness. You're hitting fitness goals and people may be looking for a healthier lifestyle. A lot of breweries do go down the route of hosting events like workout, yoga, these events. And I think those are great. And honestly, I do think there's a really good market for those. Where I think people fail is going back to our first note of a promo. You have to do it consistently.
Sure.
Hosting yoga once in the month is probably not going to bring people in. Now, if, 3 days a week you're hosting something, or if you're hosting yoga once a week and you do a discount for buying a 4-pack or a 6-pack or however many months you want to like make this go through, people are more likely to go when they know they can consistently go versus the random Saturday that it's like, hey, it's a yoga event. And you're like, cool. Yeah, something came up. You don't do it. Where if you're already committed in mentally to like, this is a month-long endeavor, you're probably going to show up and not schedule over. So make it consistent, keep people coming back, and don't just do it as a one-off.
Yep. That's clever. Fitness and beer and consistency.
Fitting this beer in my mouth.
There you go.
There it is.
There it is.
Nailed it.
There it is. It's either way you sling it and slice it. Solid advice, Chelsea.
Thank you.
Solid.
Thank you.
It's a good question and answer. We come back to events, and that's why I like that the conversation comes up every year, because every year we get to talk about what worked last year. I mean, we talked about it last year. So what worked? And it's a way to revisit it and look ahead to the future. I think at the end of the day, it's about being proactive, and I love that despite it being December, I mean, it's like a month-ish out. I mean, you've got holidays roaring through, so it's probably not that dead yet. But preparing for January, February, and just what works.
Understand the whys of what's going on in your own brewery.
Yeah. Also, the customer experience, like we've talked about customer data before, right? How well do you know the people that are coming through your doors, and hopefully really well, right? Hopefully. So one of these or none of them are going to appeal to them or not. So hopefully you can hit on the right one and it makes everybody happy. Okay, it is time for the main segment of the Body by Beer podcast. So
to the main segment.
I was trying to like do a mellow vibe, but my brain went right to Limp Bizkit, and I was like, keep rolling, rolling, rolling.
You were in the ICP mood earlier.
Anytime Juggalo Homies comes up on my random music list, I always send it to my homies. And
it's about quarterly.
I don't know. I feel like it's coming up more and more, but I've also been in my car a lot more. And, you know, like any good algorithm, it plays the things that you like. And I happen to listen to that one all the way through every time. So it comes up more and more.
And then I hit replay and I listen to it all the way through again.
It's such a good song. Like, anyway.
Yeah.
All right. So
main segment
of today's Body by Beer podcast. And we are talking about winter ales. So we're embracing that holiday spirit and we're journeying through the enchanting world of these winter ales. We're going to go with their rich history up until their modern day magic. Oh my God, there's a beer behind your ear.
Must have been hiding behind my headphone set.
Must have been.
I'm
not very good at magic, but winter ales are magical.
They are magical. And these cozy brews aren't just about taste. They're about magic. No, I'm just kidding.
And done.
They're steeped in tradition dating back to the medieval times.
Darn it, I wanted to be the first one to say that. You should have wrote it better.
Winter ales have always been more than just a beverage. They're part of the culture and the society fabric of the holidays. Societal, even the worst.
The social fabric. Societal is good enough.
Because you told me I couldn't say societal, so I went social, and that still wasn't right.
It is social.
Oh, well, look at me. Then what did I do wrong? Is it society?
Yeah.
Yeah,
we're just moving on.
Okay.
All right. So let's get into it, and we'll talk about the different types of winter ales. First, we have the traditional winter warmers stemming from England, known for their malty goodness and higher alcohol content to keep you all nice and snuggled in the wintertime.
Keeps you extra warm.
That's right.
There's the American twist, which we like to throw in all the spices. So we've got the spiced winter ales, and they range from subtle spices to boldly flavored.
That makes sense.
Lots of options there. Bringing it to mind a kitchen-filled holiday baking.
Okay, so if I'm thinking about holiday baking, I'm thinking sugar cookies, I'm thinking chocolate, fudge, peanut brittle.
Banana bread.
So cinnamon, nutmeg, ginger.
Yeah.
Okay, you got me. Okay, I'm following. So we're talking about that. So we can't forget then Christmas and holiday ales. I feel like that's where we're going. And these are quite the little festive treats, which often feature those classic holiday spices and sometimes even fruits.
Yeah. If you want to go even sweeter, jump into the stout and porter world, right? You can get extra flavors like peanut butter, kind of giving you that peanut butter cookie vibe, or just go with the OG of the graham cracker. Also gonna be a little bit sweeter. It's gonna just give you a whole different array of flavors that are richer and more complimentary. Again, going into those baking, nutmeg, cinnamon, hot cocoa type of
coffee,
warm weather flavors.
Yum. And then, of course, we wouldn't be where we are without the Belgian style winter ales and their yeast strains. Truly the best of the best, in my opinion, which adds a great complex of spicy and fruity notes to a beer.
Yeah,
complexity, not depending on how you look at it. Yeah,
so
exactly.
All the best parts of yeast, all that complexity.
Yeast is truly the life of the party.
Yeah, and I think
in so many ways.
We hit this time of year. I think we kind of hit through the summer, and the brewers are excited to experiment. Yes. And so they kind of give us some of our best experimental beers, and they go big, they go bold, and then they go home.
Especially during the holidays.
For the holidays, to their families.
So we've gone beyond the holidays. So now we can kind of draw on that historical significance of these types of ales And these winter ales have truly been, so to speak, warming all of our hearts since the medieval times. I finally got to say it.
Yeah.
Excited.
Thanks, Jim Carrey.
Particularly during, again, winter solstice celebrations or Christmas, etc.
Yeah. In medieval Europe, brewing specialty beers for winter was pretty common, actually. They were stronger, more alcohol, spice ales, and as you kind of brought up, they're brewed for warmth, persistence, kind of a good combo of what you think about with winter.
Makes sense. If you're not just celebrating the beer, it's about staying warm.
Yeah, it's about staying warm, and it brings back. I wish they were my own memories, but an interesting tradition that was part of the European winter festives.
Yeah. Are you talking about wassailing?
I am talking about wassailing. Who's not talking about wassailing?
TBH, to be honest, I
Wassailing.
I wasn't familiar with wassailing until doing the research for this, but I did grow up caroling, so I'm familiar with that. But anyway, so people would go.
Give you a beer?
Maybe. I mean, the winters are pretty cold up north.
That's fair. What a ripoff.
They might have.
Cold. Get cookies, candy, or a beer.
Definitely cookies and candy.
Okay. That's fine.
And probably like a stew or something.
Ooh, all right.
So wassailing, so people go door to door with a wassail bowl, offering spiced winter ale, and singing and or caroling, however you want to call it. And it was all about community and spreading that good cheer.
Yeah, you come sing and they're like, here's some beer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But
Warm
I was
up,
like
you're
5,
chilly.
so they weren't giving us.
Yeah, well, quitter.
Again, maybe, but I don't think so.
Interesting historical piece about this was it hit a time when a size of ale was a regulation that was taking place. And really the concept of it was based on the weight and the ingredients going in. It capped the price. This also was going on with bread. So really bread, beer, a lot of the same ingredients, however much you brought in, you could only sell it for so much, which allowed it to be a more cost-effective seasonal treat for everybody.
Sure.
Because they couldn't jack up the price just because it's cold or people were hungry and all the other stuff going on. They had to keep it at a specific price.
That's a really good regulation. Otherwise, they definitely could have.
They could jack that price right up.
So what we also can't ever overlook when it comes to beer is when we're talking about monasteries.
Yeah.
And they were often and have been at the forefront of brewing and crafting special ales for religious celebrations. And these ales were likely the versions of our modern winter ales.
Yeah, that makes sense. And they symbolize celebration, community, and comfort, especially during, the getting dark earlier season. Yeah, it gets cold.
The darkest parts of the year.
The darkest parts of the year. Sun. Because of the sun.
Just because the sun is going down.
Because of the sun.
Yeah. Okay.
Otherwise, it sounds
dark.
Still sounds dark.
And for some, it might be. But we hope not. We hope everybody gets a chance to celebrate and share good memories and moments with family and friends and all that.
Yeah. Wherever you got by.
Yeah, so these winter ales today, they continue more of that celebration legacy, right? The rich flavors and the spices are really always a nod to those traditions of spice and festive beers from centuries past, or yesteryears.
Yeah. And speaking of that, let's kind of like pivot this a little bit into the impact that these winter ales have had on the holiday seasons today. I mean, they're not just drinks anymore. They're part of like the whole experience.
They truly are. They truly are. So they capture that essence of the season, right? So they're perfect for those holiday parties or cozy nights by the fire, right? We're talking about staying warm. And, you can't forget their economic impact either. You touched on that earlier. But also many breweries release special winter ales and limited editions or barrel-aged beers this time of year, which people absolutely love. I am definitely one of those. I know you are also one of those people that love this time of the year. And it's a huge boost for breweries during the holiday season.
Yeah. It's about, making enjoyable, tasty beers for people to take home and share with their, family, friends, and
Cheers, friend.
people. It's a special time. And beer is, I guess some people don't see it that way. It's unfortunate, but it really is meant to be a time of sharing and happy. And sometimes that helps with a glass of beer.
Yeah. It's a symbol. It's not necessarily just a
drink,
a beverage.
Yeah, it's a great segment there into the medieval times of beer.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Ooh, that was really good. Really hit that.
That was
That was terrible.
my Axl Rose. Welcome to the jungle.
Let me draw my sword. Put it back.
My machete. Let's get to the jungle.
That's my machete. It's time for some beer facts.
Beer facts, which are going to give you a sip of wisdom.
Oh, all right. Well, let's chat about fun facts about beer.
Fun facts about beer. In medieval Europe, it was common for winter ales to be brewed with a variety of spices, as we talked about, and herbs available at the time, such as bay leaves, ginger, cinnamon, and
Anise.
anise. I have a really hard time not saying anus with it because I think it's funnier.
You can always associate it with black licorice.
There you go. This was partly due to the scarcity of hops in the region, which makes sense because it's cold. They're not going to be growing.
Yeah.
The spice ales were often associated with good health and were believed to have medicinal properties, a perception that persisted through the Middle Ages.
We've gone from medieval to middle aged,
The medieval to the middle.
which is funny because at least I am middle aged. So now we're in the Middle Ages.
We're in the Middle Ages.
We're talking about Middle Ages while we're middle aged.
Oh, yeah. Following you now.
Excuse
Look
me.
at that. We talked a little bit on the wassailing in the winter ales. We basically hit it all. Like, people would go carol and they would be gifted beers for their presence of hopefully lovely singing and to stay warm out there while it's cold and chilly. And it's meant to spread holiday cheer. It's just kind of a nice way to stay in touch with people. One of my more favorite stories on here is since we did talk about that winter ales and the seasonals tend to be a little bit stronger, a little bit heftier in the boozahol.
Because they keep you more warm.
They do keep you more warm. And I think you just crave them more. Like,
Keep you warmer.
like, I know people do, but like, I do not want like this big heavy beer on a hot summer day. I want something light, People drink it, but it's more of like a winter thing for me.
That's fair.
So Brewdog released one of the highest alcohol beers at the time, which was released in 2009, and it was at 32%.
That's big beer.
Big beer. Called a Tactical Nuclear Penguin,
Fantastic
which is a
name.
great name.
Fantastic.
And what was fun about this is they actually used the brewing technique we talked about last week, the week before, or something like that, where you'd
Couple
freeze
weeks,
it
yeah.
and take out the water and condense in it, make it higher alcohol, which is a pretty cool concept. And obviously there's beers that are bigger now and at this point, but at the time that was a big old hefty beer. And let's be honest, it's still a big hefty beer.
That's still a big beer.
Big.
I mean, anything above 10.
I feel like if we drank that by the end of this episode, we'd be pretty sloppy. It'd be fun. It'd be a
Yeah,
fun
the
challenge.
barrel age got me last week. That was what, 10, 11? No joke.
Let's see. There's more other areas of the world that also do traditional ales that aren't necessarily what we think of as like the winter ales. Would be like Japan. And their winter ales are more local ingredients. And so that's going to be like yuzu, which is a type of citrus fruit.
Okay.
And they incorporate sake brewing techniques, which is,
Makes sense.
yeah. So I think it's going to probably be higher alcohol.
Warming.
Yeah, a little bit more warming, but very different from like our big heavy beers. I would be very interested to look up what some of those are and maybe get some. It'd be great to know.
Yeah, we should.
Belgian strong ales, as we talked about, are often associated with winter as well. And you're going to have, different spice ranges from fruity to spicy to, well, usually they're pretty higher alcohol, but those are great ways to keep you warm in the winter. And some beer facts about your winter beers.
Those are great beer facts.
Beer facts.
You can throw them around at the dinner table.
Yeah.
Throw them around at your favorite local brewery.
Mm-hmm.
Or just maybe tell yourself about them and laugh about it later.
What my favorite part about it is?
What?
Is that it segues us into my favorite thing, which is drinking and eating.
Yes, same.
And so it's going to get us going into our brews and bites.
Brews and bites.
What do you got for us, Lizzie? What are we pairing with our winter ales?
Yeah. Well, what would pair perfectly with a winter ale? We're going to go with the influence of our medieval times.
Medieval times.
And what was abundant in the medieval times, specifically in Europe, in a forest.
Yeah. Wait, you going to keep me on the edge of my seat? It's got wheels. I might fall off.
Well, then I just laugh.
Fair.
Deer. We're talking about deer, the majestic deer.
Venison.
That's right. Venison. Yeah. So venison stew, specifically.
Oh, okay. It's also warming.
Yep, exactly.
It'll be toasty by the end of this meal.
I mean, it's a great way to go to bed. Okay, I've had a nice, robust winter ale, and my belly's full of some warm venison stew.
Yeah,
that's
great.
Right. So not only was it hugely popular, but there's some other reasons why it was popular, not just because it was prevalent, but more popular. But anyway, so deer was more available than livestock. Makes sense. We're talking about the heavily forested area. And hunting was actually often a privilege of nobility.
Okay.
As a game meat, venison was, and it was associated with the upper class. So it was seen as a status symbol.
Gotcha. All right.
Maybe that's where trophy hunting comes from.
Ooh, interesting. Yeah, because they were able to hunt so far beyond their means that they were like, we just want this one because it's got a big rack on it.
I mean, something about... Yeah, bigger, better, faster, stronger. I was gonna go somewhere else. I know you saw my eyes flicker, and I was like, maybe I won't go there.
Maybe I won't.
So and they were often the status symbol, right, of hunting the big buck, or it was a status symbol featured in feasts and banquets and noble houses.
All right, so it was. Venison was the meal of the kings and the queens.
Basically.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Not the commoners. They were eating bread and and porridge beer.
And liquid bread, right? And, I mean high octane alcohol.
Yep.
But there's also the practicality of it, right? So venison stew was particularly popular during the colder months.
Makes sense.
I mean, it makes sense today, right? You go out and you hunt during the winter times. You freeze your buns off, and hopefully you are successful in your hunt, and you get to bring home your trophy for that day, and hopefully, you use that as a means of survival. Yeah. But putting that in a stew or a soup, whatever, chili you want to do, but we're going to do a stew. It was common because the venison could then be cooked in a single pot over an open fire.
Yeah, so you got the warmth of the fire, double whammy.
Exactly.
But actually, I really want to, at some point in time in my life, cook a soup or a stew in a cauldron.
Were we just talking about this?
Yeah, an open fire. It just sounds so awesome.
What were we talking about?
Probably witches. I don't know.
Actually, I think I was explaining to Kevin that we were talking about brewing a stew in a cauldron.
Probably.
Yeah, that's probably what it was.
Jump on Amazon. I need this delivered tonight.
Like, oh my God, you've been flagged for indecent society.
The fire pit on the patio, that just crank that up and put a cauldron over it and make some witch's brew. 4 frog legs and 3 eyeballs.
A go.
What are you going to say from a goat?
No. No, you had the
A
same.
hair from a goat's nostril.
Oh, real twirly one. So speaking
the toe
of
from a whore.
from a whore, whores drink Pinot Grigio. But I really like Pinot Grigio, so think what you will.
Think what you will.
All right.
Sorry,
So venison stew in cauldron. So venison stew, it's rich, it's hearty, it's ideal for warmth and sustenance during the winter times. So without refrigeration, preserving meat at the time obviously was a challenge, right? If you haven't seen any of the Alone episodes, you would leave it there.
Just moving it over.
Stop it. Sorry. I don't want to look over here. I'm being lazy. Okay. So without refrigeration, preserving meat was definitely a challenge during that time. So turning fresh venison into a stew helped preserve the meat longer, especially when combined with techniques like salting or smoking.
Oh, so you're saying this isn't like when they were eating it in the medieval times, it wasn't fresh. It was like pre-made from the earlier months so they could store it.
I'm saying you can make that is an option, but I'm also saying you can make a whole bunch of it and it's not going to go bad right away.
Oh,
or
gotcha.
you could feed a whole bunch of people.
Gotcha. So they would still do it like in the winter. It'd be fresh at a time. And then because they could store it and keep it cold, then it would was like what they ate all winter long.
Yes.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yes, exactly.
I'm picking up what you're putting down.
Yeah, you are targeting what I'm hunting.
Yeah, I'm mapping what you're questing.
Got it. Okay.
Smelling what you're stepping in.
I don't have anything else.
Picking what you're nosing.
Did you already say mapping what I'm questing?
I did. All right, moving
I'm
on.
Smoking what you're rolling.
There you go.
There's also this nutritional aspect, right? It's not just the storage of the meat. It's also venison is absolutely a superfood. It's high in protein. It's low in fat. And when you cook it in a stew or a soup with herbs and vegetables and sometimes an ale, right, for added flavor, it makes for a flavorful and nourishing meal. And it absolutely offered a break from the mundane daily diet that was probably honestly just bread.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, so seasonal obviously helped it, but nutritional, it was actually a really, really smart choice on top of it.
Yep.
So it was part of like a socioeconomic context because hunting was such a big part of that.
Yeah.
Being able to go out and hunt and
It was practical.
yeah, and provide nutrients. And it was kind of like the yay go too. So you weren't just eating kind of some of the same old boring stuff.
Right. And I don't know specifically how it always worked, but I imagine it probably maybe similar today. Like you couldn't go out and hunt unless you had permission, but it was probably easier to go out and hunt than it was to be like, say, feed and care for, and then say like slaughter your livestock. I imagine you needed to be in a more of a wealthier economic state.
Yeah.
And hunting, again, being more practical. But anyway, okay. So now imagine, we'll get into it. So now we're pairing our venison stew with our winter ale.
Yeah.
That's really the point of this segment, right? So the winter ale, it's a frothy head on our sites, right? When we're looking at it, which complements that robust and earthy appearance that a stew might give.
Okay.
So it's setting the tone for this rustic and inviting meal. And you know, what does it smell like? Well, the winter ale really echoes the herby aromas of the venison stew. And then sometimes there's hints of curacao in the beer, which adds a subtle and sweet citrus fragrance that is a contrast to the savory, meaty smell of the stew.
Okay, so this is going to be almost not necessarily as complimentary, a little bit like contrasting, right? Because like I don't think of like
balance.
I don't think of like meaty, heavy, thick stew in citrus, so the citrus would brighten it and lighten it up a bit. So it's a little bit more contrasting.
Exactly. Thank you for pointing that out. And so for the taste of the winter ale is strong, it's smooth, character, and it has that spice and a touch of sweetness. So which, to your point, it contrasts with the rich and gamey flavor of the deer or the venison. Yeah. So the spices in the beer can complement the herbs used in the stew.
Yeah, makes sense, because you're also going to like cook with some of those similar spices, especially if that's the only thing you had around.
Yeah. So depending on which, exactly, if that's the only thing you had around, exactly. So when you're combining the two, you're going to get these big, deep, and complex flavors in each, right? In both the stew and the beer. So whatever that big dominating flavor is probably going to come across really, really strong because of it. Yeah. So what is it? Not what does it also taste like, but what's the texture of it? Well, I feel like you kind of have an idea. It's like those big, thick chunks of stew. But there's also that smoothness with the winter ale, but also that mild carbonation that contrasts with that hearty, thick texture of the stew. And so that sip of beer kind of helps like reset the palate each time, right? So it's a big bite every time, right? Yeah. Not only is it fundamentally satisfying, but it is also taste bud satisfying.
Yeah, I think of like the taste with it as, when like you bite in, like we talked about having like the bigger beers a little bit warmer, but they're still going to be way colder than the stew. And when you take this big old bite of the meat and it makes you because it's like too hot, you can like cool it down.
I'm laughing so hard because I'm like, I know exactly what you mean.
And you're cooling it down. So you cool it down with the beer. But my favorite way when I do like food, drink, any pairing is usually like I chomp up the food. And then before I swallow is when I like take the drink of whatever the flavor is. And it kind of helps like swish it down. So if you're getting it all through and then you get to swish it down finally with that cold beer. And then those flavors are really going to help like offset like the palate and swish down, like you're going to get the combined together. You're going to swish it down.
It's a beautiful experience. Yeah. And I hope that you haven't burned your palate too much.
Yeah, you might have scorched your taste buds a bit.
Hopefully not, right? Like hopefully it's cooled down enough that you didn't trash your palate so hard. But I feel like you totally crushed like the sound element of this presentation. So I don't even want to go from there.
You don't want to tink?
Well, I mean, it's gone and we can't tink. Oh, you're going to share?
There's going to be a share.
Yeah, that might have been my favorite sound experience ever, because who hasn't had a surface of the sun soup or stew? Cheers to you.
Swish it down with the cold beer, we get through, get the linger. Oh yeah, I can like the saltiness, and even just something like this having that sweet finish on it. And then you get to mix that bit of the sweet from the beer with that salty linger of like the gamey flavor together. Mm-hmm. Oh, I can like, I don't even eat meat and I can taste that shit right now.
I was just going to say that. And I'll probably always say something about it. If you are, if you go along the lines of a vegetarian or a vegan diet, you can still, bring these flavors to life. Yeah. Gamey, I have not figured out. I am not an expert though. I just dabble in these things. Yeah. But I would say, depending on gamey, right? Maybe a lot of the game is like a corn-fed option, or maybe they're eating a lot of sorghum, or maybe they're eating a lot of grass, and that's like I feel like you can figure that out if you know how you're complementing and contrasting your vegan or vegetarian dishes or whatever. Yeah. You're going to figure that out. If, again, going back to the why, if you understand why things taste the way that they do. And I thought that was really beautiful, by the way, like breaking down a problem scenario, like looking at it from a different perspective. So you can apply that to food as well, right? If you're looking for that type of flavor profile, gamey, herby, earthy spices, you'll be able to, and with a little bit of research, I mean, the internet is out there, so it'll probably tell you what to do, right? But what does something eat? If you are a carnivore, and especially from a hunting aspect, like what is the animal eating that makes their, sorry for the word, but makes their flesh taste the way that it does? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you can start to complement or replicate. Sorry, you can start to replicate those flavors on different spices and ingredients out there. So you could definitely enjoy a venison stew, and maybe it's a nut with lentils, bigger root vegetables, right? Potatoes, and always throw a good potato, especially this time of the year, right? There's a shitload of them.
Yeah, lots of potatoes, probably what I throw in there.
Yeah, and don't forget the cornstarch or the flour, right, to make it a little bit thicker, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But anyway, I thought that was a really, really good point to bring up, right? That just get down to the why. And I feel like no matter if it's customers or how you want your beer to taste or how you think it tastes or how you want your food to pair, it's got to be why, like what you're looking to pair with it, or
like
I could go on.
I've heard many people say that if you're wanting like a rabbit stew, just turn it into a carrot stew and it's just fine. Tastes the same.
Wow. Ready?
It's just what they eat. It's fine. I'm just kidding.
It's fine. There's also that whole like blood and fat aspect.
Yeah, the fat aspect's hard to get over. But it's not hard to. It's hard to replicate in a vegan diet. If you really like the fat, it's hard to replicate that. That's a tough one.
But
oil can only go so far.
For a lean superfood like deer that isn't super fatty, right?
It's the gamey then.
It is that gamey.
Oh yeah,
it is.
I don't know how to do the gamey.
I don't know.
Have to research
Still working on that.
Yeah. Anyways, well, that's it. That's what we got. That's all your food pairings. That's your Q&A. That's your brew news. That's your main segment. That's your 101s. We got you covered on every aspect, and that's all we're going to talk about today. Remember, people, life's too short for bad beer. Get good beer. Love it. Enjoy it. And all of our listeners out there, please like, subscribe, follow. It means everything to us. It helps us get boosted and out in front of more people, which is our goal. Let's break down those walls and make this space not as intimidating as it might seem. And you can follow us on any podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. YouTube, Spotify, Apple, and we're on all of the social medias at Body by Beer Podcast. Hit us up there. We'd love to hear from you. Likes, follows, all those things. Good stuff. Appreciate you all.
That's right. Thanks for joining. We really appreciate it. And as always, if you have any suggestions or comments or stories that you want to share, please hit us up. We do appreciate the support.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening.
Bye.